Hi, I'm Terry Higashiyama. I'm a resident of the city of Maple Valley, and I've lived here for approximately 30 years. And I have a few questions that I'd like to ask concerning the new codes for the city. And I'm going to read off my notes here so I make sure I ask the question that I want to get the answer to. We've heard that Maple Valley recently adopted new development code requirements for commercial zones. Can you tell us more about the new requirements and what we should expect as residents who live here?
Sure, I can speak to that question. City Council recently passed new code regulations in commercial zones in the city, and these regulations are different than the previous code in a couple ways. The maximum height is a little bit lower, from 85 feet to 45 feet. There's a higher percent commercial development required when projects are mixed use. There is a lower residential density permitted from 36 dwelling units to 24. And there's some pedestrian standards that have been enhanced, like not permitting drive-throughs between buildings and arterials. There's also an affordable housing requirement for mixed-use developments.
Thank you. What's different about this code compared to what was built with the Crockett and Monarch apartments?
Yeah, the Crockett and Monarch development was built under the previous code, so there was a lower commercial ratio required. Now there would be required to be more commercial on that site. That project was built to a similar density as what has been approved, and actually the height is similar to what the new code states. But if that was built now, they would need to provide some affordable housing in those units.
Okay, thank you. We imagine there's a lot of pent-up demand since the moratorium went on for so long and the housing market is so strong. Where will the developers build in Maple Valley?
Yeah, we have had applications for a couple pre-application meetings in the last couple of months. There is some pent-up demand, and those projects have been for mixed-use projects. One of them is on 240th, just south of Whitty Road, south of the QFC, for a mixed-use project, and the other is south of Four Corners on 169 and Maple Ridge Way, and those are both mixed-use projects. There's a vacant parcel on 240th and 169 that we haven't had a pre-application submittal for, but that's a parcel that will likely redevelop soon. And all of these projects have a public notice period with their design review, so there's time for the public to give comment.
Okay, thank you. There are new apartments being constructed called Marquee behind the new Starbucks. Are they going to reflect the new requirements?
Yeah, I can answer that one.
Thank you.
Actually, the Marquee apartments have been fully constructed and they are occupied. So the new development regulations will not apply to the existing Marquee apartments.
So they're set to as how they're developed?
They're set as is, yes.
Okay, thank you. Elephant in the room question, we always love those.
Great.
How will the new zoning requirements impact our roadways?
That's a great question. All development will impact our roadways. All development increases traffic, whether it's mixed use or commercial. This was a question that came up early on in the process during the Planning Commission review. And we hired a transportation consultant to do an analysis of the difference between a straight all commercial project and if you have a mixed use project, what the traffic difference would be, the traffic impact difference. And surprisingly, there was only a 1% difference between the two.
Really?
So no matter what in the future, these properties will be developed in some fashion. Now, whether it's all commercial or a mixed use development, there will be a negligible change in the amount of increase to traffic.
Why don't we make the developers pay for the roads and the schools?
We sure do. We absolutely do. All new development is required to contribute to a transportation impact fee, which is applied towards our 6-year transportation impact program, transportation improvement program, which is set on a 6-year cycle by the City Council and updated every year. school impact fees, which I think Pete can address in a little bit, are only applied to residential projects. So a straight commercial project does not collect school impact fees because a commercial project does not add students to the system.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We've heard the term GMA used a lot over the years. What is it, and why is it so important?
That stands for Growth Management Act, and that's a law that's adopted in Washington State that basically protects all of our lands, all of our wild lands around us, the trees and wildlife. It prevents something called urban sprawl. So that's within an urban growth boundary. If you start bleeding your development outside that area, eventually you can become like a Los Angeles or a large area like that where one area kind of bleeds into the next. So this prevents that from happening. We also have pretty clearly defined borders here, even natural borders, even without that law being enacted. We have the Cedar River, the Kent watershed. These things kind of help protect us from growing too big out, which people love that. But because we need to shoulder our responsibility of that piece of the Growth Management Act, we do need to grow up a little bit. And that's why it's important to institute multifamily housing so that we can go ahead and satisfy that demand without having to go ahead and jeopardize the wildlife and the trees that are surrounding us. So if you look at an aerial view, and this is what really kind of like my aha moment when I was looking at it. If you look at an aerial view of Maple Valley, there's Maple Valley, but it's shocking in a beautiful way, like how many trees, it gets forested all over the place. And I could just, in my mind's eye, picture that just shrinking. So this protects that from happening.
We've read that the new regulations require some percentage of affordable housing. Why can't we just let the market decide the price?
A couple of things though. One is there is a recently adopted House Bill 1220 that will require by 2024 there has to be some allowance for affordable housing in all communities. So we don't have that number yet, that target number, but Maple Valley's been proactive in that we've gone ahead and zoned for 10%. So out of the new mixed-use developments that are happening in multifamily, for example, if we had 200 units built, 20 of those units would be for affordable housing. And when we say affordable housing, it's not geared to the chronically unhoused people who are actively homeless, because we just don't have the resources or the infrastructure in our small community to serve that population. So this is going to actually target people who are on the brink. It's people who are at the 70% median income for King County. So these are our neighbors who are struggling in some fashion. Maybe they're going through divorce, or maybe there's been a huge medical crisis, who knows what. And they're just on the edge, and then something happens and their transmission goes out in their car, they lose their job, and that pushes them over the edge. Now, instead of having to maybe lose their community as well, where they have to go outside and find someplace else, this will allow them to hopefully be a safety net, so you can at least stay in the comfort of your community while you get your feet back on your feet and everything. And another way that we're trying to kind of make sure that everybody is able to preserve their dignity and keep that sense of community is that it's written in the code too that all of the units will look essentially the same. So when you're driving by, you won't be able to look and see here's the affordable housing versus the standard market rate. So they'll all kind of look the same, and which is great for the community too. So we're trying to solve a problem, and it will be law, but I think it's something that we would probably have wanted to do anyway. So.
And it keeps kids in their same school.
Exactly.
Their same learning program.
Keeping stability is just hugely important. So
very important.
Yeah.
Yes. We want everyone to be able to afford a place to live, but we're concerned about increased crime in Maple Valley. What's the city doing to address this issue?
Multiple studies show that having affordable housing doesn't impact the crime rate at all. Once you get above, it's like 50 units, that's different. If you have like entire projects and that kind of thing, then then the statistics are a little bit different on that. But for what we're proposing is that even if we built 300 units, there'd only be 30 affordable housing. And from what we see, it shouldn't have an effect one way or the other.
So everybody gets treated equally
Everybody
going
gets
through this
treated
process.
Exactly, yeah.
Very important. Thank you. The city's new development code will bring more people and families to Maple Valley. What is the school district doing to consider this capacity?
It's an ongoing issue for us, and we've engaged with a demographer, and the work that they do is to understand population growth and where that growth is going to be, and what kind, that comes from families moving into the area, but it also comes from just resale of homes. And for the school district, something that's important there is that you've got maybe a family whose kids have graduated, they're not in the school system anymore, and now they move out, and that home is replaced with a young family that does have kids in the school system. So for us, the population growth in the student body comes from both of those. It's new families moving into the area, and new homes being built to house those families. But it's also resale of existing homes being populated with new students and new families. So the demographer's work is really helping to inform us about what that growth looks like, and that's their job. And so we've had a great relationship with them. The demographer consults with us, consults with the city to understand what is going on in zoning, what available lots are out there, those kinds of things. So we consult with and partner with the demographer quite a bit. The other piece that I'll mention is that we have had an ongoing housing committee, and when I say housing, it's where are we going to house our students, which school are they going to be in. That group is helping brainstorm about how do we use our existing facilities and what solutions are out there that could house these students with the anticipated growth that we have.
So you're all working as a team in the community to make this function for the people like myself who live here.
That's right, and that's one of the really terrific things about the City of Maple Valley and the Tahoma School District is this tremendous partnership that we have. We work really collaboratively together, closely together in a number of ways about anything from mental health to growth and zoning and things of that nature. We have a great relationship with one another, so we try to keep each other in the loop.
Great. So a question for all of you. If someone wants to be involved in their community, whether it's as a citizen or serving on a board or just being more aware of what's going on, how they can be more active, how can they go about that?
Well, we have some open planning commission spots right now also, and those can be found on the city's website. And you can reach out to me or Matt with questions about that, and city staff's always available to answer questions. We encourage folks to attend planning commission meetings and city council meetings. There's always time for public comment allotted at those meetings.
Excuse me, on top of just the planning commission, the city has many other boards, Parks Commission, Library Board, Arts Commission, City Council, obviously. So there's many different ways to serve, including get out and vote.
Absolutely. Thank you. Really appreciate all your knowledge. As a senior citizen that lives in the city of Maple Valley, there's a lot of us that are on fixed incomes, and we want to feel engaged, but we also know that we have to look at how our resources go. So I think it's important for all of us to understand how government works and how it's part of us, and all of us become equal partners in making it successful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.